Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Chrissy and today in this video I'm going to be giving you a prediction reading for the 24th of March. Now, I have had a few requests from a few people that subscribe and that watch me from Canada about could I touch on Trudeau and just see where that's kind of currently at, and that's something I'll be just talking about towards sort of the end of the video, so stay watching. I'm definitely going to touch on that today, and this is also just a general reading, so we'll just get started. I'll let my guides channel through and we'll see what comes up. So they're showing me like a child's puzzle, so it's it's a puzzle that you actually put the shapes in. So it's like you pick up a star block and you put the star block in the star shape. You pick up the round block and put the round block in the round shape. So this is where the government's at. They're trying to put everybody into their compartments. And we know that they're very good at using a lot of tools, particularly the media and fear and all these things, to keep people in their little boxes. However, there is a large amount of the population, and this is globally, that won't fit into their little boxes. And it's causing them a lot of frustration because there is no shape that these people will fit into in their little compartment box. So this is where they've had to do kind of the first aid and get control of the masses again, because there were too many people rising up and it was starting to make a difference and it was starting to expose. It was bringing out the truths and they didn't like it. And so they're trying to put everybody back in their boxes. Hence, all of a sudden, we're sort of dealing with this crazy Omicron stealth strain that they keep saying on the TV is like sweeping through, and it's just, 3 times faster than the other Omicron. So it's kind of convenient that, again, they're trying to really instill this fear. And, of course, the war, Ukraine, Russia, all these kind of things to try and get people back into their little shaped compartments. But, of course, over here we've got the abstract ones that don't fit into any compartment. Now, the issues that they've got now is that frustration is rising in them. They're so close to getting their resets and their agendas implemented that they don't want to lose this fight now. And that's something that we have to be aware of, and that's currently the battle that's kind of still going on. There's the push, then they push back, then we push back, then they push back. So they've gone to back into control mode. So they've gone back into, I think I said the other day, trying to rebuild that mass psychosis and get this kind of fear back up in people so they can regain control. And over here in Australia, it's booster, 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 push the booster, booster, booster. And this is kind of what's going on in the current energies, this pushing of the agenda. Because I think a lot of people at the moment can look back and go, well, it's been 2 years and we're still pretty much living in the same experience. I mean, what's really changed other than that people have got zillions of vaccines and nothing's changed? We're still dealing pretty much with all this. I think the only difference is they're probably not blaming the unjab that much anymore. Things have changed a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm getting in this current energy, that we're not fitting into their little boxes and it's causing them a lot of frustration. So that's why they've put their focus back on regaining that power and that control and putting fear in people. And I think that's become very clear to a lot of people as well. Now, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We have got challenging times ahead. And look, it's not just the governments and that are having frustration. We're having frustrations as well, because we can see the enormity of what's kind of going on. Now, when people don't see that, they don't understand the enormous amounts of money that are being generated with these elite people. Like we're talking about mega dollars. When you look at BlackRock and you look at Big Pharma, it's mortifying. And I talked yesterday about how this filters down and everyone seems to get their little pay packets, I'm sure, from all this pushing of the agenda. And sadly, it's the little people again that are suffering because they're suffering financially. A lot of people's lives have been changed because of side effects from these vaccines. And plus also that people could have been saved by this. Like, why wouldn't we go down the route of using things that could save people's lives? And this is where there's a lot of this conflict in people. And because we're not fitting into our little block hole where they want to put us, they're not able to shut us down and not able to keep us quiet and not able to stop us sharing information. That's why it's so important that we keep churning these things around. Doesn't matter if you put it on and then it gets taken off, that's fine, because you might have shown it to 3 people. So don't worry if you get, gosh, I get it all the time on Facebook and everything. Just keep doing it, because this is how you start to plant those seeds like I talked about the other day. I'll just see what else comes through. Now they're showing me like the masses are forming. So they're almost showing me like when people come together with like kind, or they come together with the same vision, it creates this very joined effect. And it's showing me almost like a blob. I don't know if you think of that old movie, The Blob. Well, that's kind of the visual that they're giving me. It's this big giant blob, like a big squishy, I think you call it goop. Some people call it goop. It's like slime, but it's a whole entity in itself. So this is what's happening with the people who are awake, the people who are freedom fighting, and they're describing to me it's turning into this giant blob. Now what it's saying is that it's creating that movement. So it's kind of coming towards people. And the governments are very, very fearful of it. So this is kind of showing me that movie. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it or seen it. It's really old. It's black and white, I think, even. And it's called The Blob. And it's like taking over their town, and it's coming into the theatre, and there's people running out screaming. And this is actually what they're showing me about the governments. The governments are scared of this ginormic blob, and it is causing them to freak out. And it's pretty funny actually, because it's this soft, big marshmallowy kind of clear blob of people coming together. But this is about the energy, and this energy, if you think of a blob, it kind of, you push it and it moves very slowly towards things. So it's like the blob's growing in size and it's getting bigger. And all these government and political people are kind of freaking out over here. It's like their worst nightmare is coming true. It's to their horror. This is growing. The blob is growing. And look, I've got to take the blob in a positive way because it's that soft energy and that uniting that's creating this big movement. And it's causing these people over here to panic, which is the government, big pharma. They're trying to regain control. So this is how they visualize us. They see us as this ginormic blob that is coming towards them, and it could eat them up and like consume them. This is kind of what happens in the movie of The Blob. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the analogy. So these people feel like their agenda could be all squashed and they could be just taken out of Parliament, and they're kind of now in their narrative of the worst case scenario. So I think this is good, because this to them is starting to appear like a horror movie where our agenda was going so beautifully. It was all planned out. Everything was going smoothly. Like, what happened? And I'm telling you, it's the Canadian truckers that created this blob movement that has been moving towards government, parliamentary politicians, and all these corrupt kind of people who have been implementing these things on our lives for a couple of years are starting to feel scared. And I think we've got to really take that as a positive, because they're scared of this mass of people represented by the blob, because it's growing in size and they feel like they could be outnumbered. And this is really turning into quite a horror movie for them, because they thought it was just going to all play out, all be fantastic. But Canadian truckers created a movement, and boy, did they create a movement around the globe. And this is what's happening. Now they're panicking. They're going into their panic mode, and they're starting to fear things, that they're fearing that people are waking up. So that's the image I want you to hold in your head today, is that we're like this big giant blob that's moving towards these people who have been lying to us, being deceptive, implementing things that are on an enormous scale that have really affected people's lives and livelihoods. And this is what's happening. They're starting to feel that fear and panic. And I think a lot of us will get a lot of relief knowing that they're starting to suffer some of these things as well that a lot of us have gone through. in the past couple of years as well. So keep that image in your head. Go and look it up. It might be on YouTube. Look up the BLOB. It's pretty funny. They have it going into movie theaters. I just remember that scene where they're running out screaming, and this is kind of what's going on, but it's the underlying energy, but this is how they're feeling inside. Now I'll certainly relate this to Trudeau. I'll just see what comes up for Canada and Trudeau as well at the moment. Now I'm feeling, they're showing me an image of Trudeau, like his legs, and they're showing me like there's an elastic band around his legs. So I believe, as we know, Trudeau is a person who just runs away from all his problems. But this is showing me that because he's got this rubber band, he can't run very far or very fast. He can only take like little steps. So if you picture a rubber band around my fingers, he's just taking little steps now. He can't run away from these issues. And that's what it's saying. It's saying that he's had to slow down and he's had to address a lot of things. And I do believe there's a lot of movement in his capital. I really believe that he really thought he had full control, but I really believe that, I believe in his cabinet and in his parliament and governing bodies. They don't have a lot of faith in him. He's not actually very well liked amongst them. I feel like he's very condescending, and he does definitely see himself above people. And he, over the years, has rubbed a lot of people in his sort of Congress or Parliament, whatever you call it over there in Canada. He's rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way through his decision making, as in he's squashed a lot of people's ideas, and it's always sat in people and they've not liked it. They've had to go along because obviously he had a lot of the final say. But I feel like there's a lot of people who are standing up to Trudeau now within his own kind of cabinets. There's definitely a shift going on. And I feel like a lot of them don't want the extreme measures that he took. They don't feel that's right to implement that on the people because it's making them feel uncomfortable. And they feel like they're getting tarred with that same brush as Trudeau, and they don't like it. Of course, he's got his 2 or 3 plebs that follow him and do whatever he say, yes sir, no sir. But there's a lot of people who don't like his techniques and the way he implements things, because it's kind of to them it's all like pie in the sky, and there's no facts and there's no evidence and there's no truths to some of the things that he's been implementing. So I definitely get there's that lack of respect from his colleagues and lack of trust, and I feel like he's done this a lot over the years to them, and they've held on to these sort of grudges. So now that's where they're trying to sort of fight back, and they've held on to these things for a long time, but now they're allowing them to surface and they're regaining their strength again against Trudeau. So that's what I'm kind of getting in his parliamentary situation. He has not won that war in his parliament or his government at all. Let's just see what else we get. I'm definitely getting Trudeau and the ship is sailing. So I am getting that image of him on a ship sailing off into the sunset. Look, and you can take that whatever way that you want, but he is looking like a speck on the distant horizon. So, and I do believe because he's been so mean, he's going to get his, it's like his just dessert. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys over there. It's an Aussie saying here where it means you get what you put out. So he's definitely not obtaining the masses. So he's not holding on to the masses. People were, I believe, creatures of habit, and when you think about voting, they tend to just vote whoever and they don't put much thought into it. Sometimes we just like vote the same thing. Like, for example, someone might just keep voting Liberal because their parents voted Liberal. And this is what happens a lot in these countries. People get stuck in the narrative and they're voting and they think, oh, better who we know than don't know. But I feel like he's not obtaining the masses anymore. I feel like it's that the lack of trust definitely in people, but it's also people are trying to distance themselves from him. And that's why I'm seeing this boat kind of going into the sunset, and he's like this little person on this boat going into the distance. So this could be him slowly fading out, or it could be that he's definitely lost the trust of the masses and the people in Canada. We know that for sure. Because he's put too much. It's funny, isn't it? It's like there's this fine line of fear. Like, if you put too much fear on people, you've got to get the balance right, because the fear he was putting on them around the virus, it's like they could kind of handle that fear because it was something that they couldn't control, and they felt like he really cared about them and he was being safe and all this kind of thing. But now it feels like the fear he's put on them is too great, and people have been shocked by it. And like I said, when you go into shock, it's quite overwhelming, because shock is something that can really affect your body, and it can cause people to wake up. So that's the message I'm definitely getting. He thought he could obtain all these kind of numbers of the people, but he has pushed too far with the fear. He got the balance wrong. He was going quite well with the fear and the mass psychosis, but now it feels like he pushed that fear up to a whole other level, and it went through the roof, and that's what has woken a lot of people up in Canada. So that's what I'm getting for Trudeau. He's either going to have to distance himself, or I feel like because of that lack of trust and that fear he's put into people, it's had too great an effect. So that's what I'm getting for Trudeau. There's definitely a lot of confidence issues in him going forward. People are very, very nervous. They're scared of him. They're uncertain, and they don't want to be reliving the last 2 years that they've just had. That's a definite. And look, I think we have to definitely thank the truckers for that ability to stand to this dictatorship, because that took enormous courage and strength. And it's by them standing up that it gave other people that strength to stand up as well. Because that's not easy to stand up and fight for your freedoms and your rights. It's very easy to give in, because not everybody has that ability to change their life. Like, it's something that when people feel exhausted and downtrodden, that energy just, sometimes it's not there. After 2 years of fighting these silly battles of mask wearing and QR code and having to just do whatever, people just give into it because it's very hard to get their head around. But not in Canada. I feel like people have had an absolute gutful of this, and they don't want it anymore. So that's something positive that we have to take with Trudeau. I do see him as like that speck in the distance, and I think that's a good thing. Let's hope. And that could be also that his confidence has shrunk and diminished as well, because he was right up on his high horse and he's sitting on his throne, and he got really taken down a few notches and quite a few pegs. I think you'd be surprised what's happened behind closed doors with a lot of the people that he thought he had support from in his government, and that, and now there could be like a real shift and a real turning point in that parliament, I believe. Now, globally, I get a lot of sanction. People are having to start to live from their heart. This is something that I'm getting globally. Look, I know a lot of people have suffered a lot of anxiety, fears, torment, vilification. And these things have affected people's hearts. But this is about getting back your heart space, and that's why I talk about keeping yourself strong, nurtured, and healthy. It's so important during challenging times. And look, it's an up and down journey moving forward. There's no way that 2022 is going to be this easy, smooth ride. That's just not going to happen. We know this is going to be still a battle that we're all got to be ready to face, because these financial collapses and crises and things that are coming are really going to knock a lot of people for six. But again, as much as it's a negative thing, it can also wake people up. And that's what we were talking about yesterday, is that finance can sometimes be the key to wake people up, because people sort of think the fuel's moving, and it'll stop soon. But I think they're going to realize when the fuel's not stopping, hang on a minute, what's going on? Like, how far is this going to go now? And it's like, it's exactly like the virus. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. What happened there? 2 weeks of high fuel prices to flatten the fuel prices, is it? And now we're going to be living through that for another year, or 2 years, is it? So people are starting to question, and that's what we want. We want people questioning, because that's how they search for info, and that's how they start to wake up. So look, that's all I'm going to give you today. Stay really strong. I know Trudeau's not on his big throne and pedestal anymore. Take that as a positive today, and leave that message in your mind. Canada, you're very strong over there. You've definitely got this. I know you guys have that hearts of the warrior over there. So look, everybody who's subscribed to my channel, please, I thank you so much for watching. I love talking to you guys. It helps me a lot as well. Stay really strong, keep fighting our fights, keep sharing, like I say every time I do a video, but it's so crucial to getting that information out. And look, we can do this. I know 2022 is not going to be smooth, but we know what to expect. So forewarned is forearmed. So thanks for watching today. Subscribe if you haven't, hit the like buttons, and I'll see you in the very next video. Bye.